How long does it take to get every single Pokemon in the generation that they were released in? That is the question I wanted to answer as I complete my Living Dex. And today we're going to play through what should be all of the Switch games. Let's set up some ground rules. I need to capture every Pokemon. I need to capture every boxable form, the Dunsparce and Alchemy count, whereas Mega Starmie and Dialga's origin form do not. Use legitimate or as legitimate methods as possible. Glitches count and so do emulated events. Let's go. I know what you're thinking. We captured Meltan and Melmetal back in the last video. We can just move them to home directly. We don't even need to play this game, right? Well, it is true. If you look at it, you could skip these games, but I chose not to. You see, this game introduces a new form for a Pokemon, the female variation of Eevee. However, for some reason, despite it being the norm for female Eevee moving on, in Let's Go, this form is exclusive to the partner Eevee in Let's Go Eevee. I'm counting the form to be from this game, but if you're following along and you wanted to skip it and get it in Sword and Shield instead, that works as well. Speaking of Sword and Shield, these games, man. Let's get the boring Pokemon out of the way, both Zarude forms as well as the World Cap, aka the Journeys Pikachu, were only available as events. Luckily, I grabbed them when they're released, but unfortunately, we can't get them any other way besides hacking right now. Everything else in Sword and Shield were relatively easy. After splitting up the Calyrex horses, as well as the new Regis, even though you need to catch 2 Regis, Registeel, and Regirock, instead of just having the 3 of them in your party. Then I moved to the Gigantamax forms. If you haven't played these games, the main gimmick of Sword and Shield is Dynamaxing, which turns a Pokemon big. Now, every Pokemon can Dynamax, but only a few can specifically Gigantamax. Gigantamax is essentially a Mega and a Pokemon-specific Z-move rolled into one, where it can change into a brand new form, but also has a specific signature move. For a Pokemon to Gigantamax, it needs the Gigantamax factor. You can get the Gigantamax factor Pokemon through gifts, raids, Dynamax adventures, or what we had to do for the most part, collecting mushrooms and making max soup in the Isle of Armor DLC. There are 2 Pokemon that are incapable of receiving the max soup to gain the Gigantamax factor: Urshifu without max honey, and Melmetal. You can obtain Gigantamax Melmetal by transferring a Pokemon to home directly from Go for the first time. It is important to note that for Pokemon with different forms like Pikachu, Venusaur, or even Toxtricity, because they don't have different Gigantamax forms, I've only obtained 1 of each. The only one that kind of breaks that rule are Flapple and Appleton, who have the same Gigantamax form akin to Mega Latios and Latios, where I caught 1 for the 2 of them. Then there's Alchemy. Now, I was going to do a side video about this Pokemon like Vivillon, but I decided against it due to how dull it is to get the forms comparatively. This Pokemon has 9 flavors, with each one being able to be topped with 7 different sweets. That means Alchemy has 63 different forms, not including its Gigantamax form. That makes this Pokemon the one with the most recognized forms. I'm looking at you, Spinda. You don't count. The most annoying part about Alchemy is each flavor is based off of you spinning in the overworld, but the form you get is based off of direction of spin, duration of spin, and when you are spinning, combined with the multiple sweets, of course. Now, the easiest way to get sweets can be found through the Battle Cafe or through the Cramomatic, and yeah, we definitely did the Battle Cafe. There are other Pokemon that were difficult to obtain, but they're pretty well known at this point, like Sirfetch'd's evolution or Galarian Yamask's evolution, but all in all, they're relatively simple to do. The main part about Sword and Shield is the constant repetition. You have to play through the entire game twice to get both forms of Urshifu. Then you have to play another 2 times to get both Gigantamax Factor Urshifu. Then you need to get all 3 of the Reggies twice, like I already said. These games are incredibly dull. Honestly, looking back, as far as catching wise, these were the easiest games to complete, but they were the hardest to get through. But now that we're done with the catching in Sword and Shield, let's go to Pokemon Legends Arceus. Due to the small amount of new Pokemon, this game was practically a breeze. We did need to play through twice though for both forms of the new Force of Nature and Namorous. But everything else was as easy as it could be. I mean, the whole point of this game is to catch as many Pokemon as possible and complete the Dex. The only issue I really had was where to put White Striped Basculin. It sort of has Fiona syndrome, where multiple official sources contradict whether this is a normal form of Basculin or a regional form. And while it doesn't make a huge difference, it does change where it's stored in home for me. But personally, due to Basculin being from the Unova region, and it completing the red, white, and blue motif, I personally don't consider it a regional form. I put it with the normal base forms. Not to mention, it would be the only regional form to break the region Pokemon naming scheme. This isn't a Hisuian Basculin, this is a White Stripe Basculin. Then we have Scarlet and Violet, which, again, catching-wise, wasn't all that difficult. This game was certainly one of the longer ones to complete, however, it certainly didn't feel like it. Now, there are some obvious hard Pokemon to get or evolve, like the 3-segment Dunsparce, the Family of 3 Mousehold, and Goldango, obviously. But Palmont, Brambleghast, and Repska needing to be walked, and Palafin needing a buddy to connect to, were really the most difficult parts, honestly. Everything else was relatively smooth, and due to the nature of it being an open world game, you could complete it fairly quickly as long as you have the right tools. And then both Kitakami and the Blueberry Academy were pretty easy too, given how little they added as far as new Pokemon go. Obviously, we had version exclusives like the Paradox forms and the legendary Pokemon, but yeah, besides the evolutions I already talked about, and obviously you kind of have to hit a good time to get the Iron Leaves and Walking Wake raids in order to complete your Dex. Complete breeze, honestly. And then obviously we have to jump into Pokemon Go to get the roaming form of Gimmighoul, and that's all the Gen 9 Pokemon. After catching every available Pokemon up to that point, I was met with a difficult decision. Do I post the Switch video right then and there, and with ZA, we just make a separate video? Or do I wait for it to be released, and then add it to this video? And my decision fell squarely on one aspect we didn't know at the time. How many new Pokemon will this game release? And as trailer after trailer popped up, it looked like it was all but certain that we'd only be getting new Megas, not new Pokemon. However, I had a sneaking suspicion we'd at least get one new Pokemon. Eternal Flower Floette, obtainable for the first time legitimately. ZA was a fairly easy adventure. We just need to beat the game, fight in the Infinite ZA Royale, and do 15 promotional matches, and then your rival will give you the Eternal Flower Floette. That'd be pretty quick, right? And we are not quite done. We need to do a little bit of cleanup first. First, Mr. Nerd1 let me know that I missed the 10% and 50% Power Construct Zygarde in my 3DS video. This fix was easy enough. I caught the 50% Zygarde in Ultra Moon and used the Zygarde Cube you get in Sword and Shield to change its ability. I did the same for a second 10% Zygarde I already had. Joke's on him though, He used Own Tempo Rockruff as an example, and it reminded me to also grab an Own Tempo Rockruff. And last but not least, Legend ZA actually gives us the opportunity to finally let us box the different trims of Furfrou. So we need to jump back into X and Y and catch a ton of Furfrou, adding to X and Y's time. Speaking of time, Let's Go Pikachu took 7 hours and 47 minutes. Sword and Shield took 34 hours and 32 minutes. Legends Arceus took 49 hours and 51 minutes. Scarlet and Violet took 61 hours and 24 minutes. And Legends ZA took 22 hours and 52 minutes. The Switch era of games took a whopping 7 days, 8 hours, and 26 minutes to complete, and bringing our total time for the entire series to 21 days, 2 hours, and 44 minutes of in-game time. I absolutely loved doing this challenge. I know it took a while for this video to come out, but again, ZA was definitely the biggest question mark on the release of this. I could have released this a year ago, but I had a suspicion that we would A, get the Eternal Flower Floette, and B, that be the only Pokemon added to the franchise with this game. So, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll definitely have more Dex challenges in the future. I have one coming up fairly soon, hopefully. And I'll see you guys next time. Alright, bye.